everybody, it's me, Kindle Spice, and I'm back with another Reshade tutorial. I figured that I should probably try and make a new one that's a lot less hectic, chaotic. I want to make one that actually makes it look like I know what I'm doing. And one that's a bit shorter, just because I know an hour is a long time to try and hold your attention for something, especially something like Reshade, which we all, hate. So this time I'll be showing you how to install Dove again, just because it seems like a lot of people are still having issues with Dove, and I know that there's been new version updates. And I got an ask on I recently just got back onto Tumblr. Hi everybody, I've been gone for a long time. And I recently got an ask asking if I could recreate Dove but for a later version. And I didn't think I was really going to do that, just because it's kind of, Reshade is not necessarily version dependent. So realistically, any preset that you make can be used for any version, kind of, with air quotes. It's really just dependent on how much work you want to put into changing things. So if I were to have recreated Dove from scratch in a later version, no matter what I did, it would not look like the old version because I'd be using new shaders. So what I decided I would do is instead try and make a tutorial that's a bit more put together, that would tell you again how to install Dove for this later version. But then because I'm extra, I said, you know what? I'll treat this like an actual re-release, and I'll put new things into the preset that I have been using in some of the newer presets I've made, and just little things that I change anyway, even when I was using Dove on a regular basis. But yeah, we're gonna try and knock this one out of the park this time. So this will be the download page, whether you've seen it already or if you're wondering where you can get to it because I haven't put links on it yet. This will be the download page for Dove 2.0. Like I said, any changes, it's basically gonna look the same way as the original one. Any of the changes that I did were very, very minor changes, like stuff that you will not notice whatsoever. And little quality of life things, so like I added hotkeys to certain things to make it easier to turn them off. But first things first, you'll need to download Reshade. All you have to do is you'll get to this homepage here and you'll press download. It'll take you down here. You can scroll down here and you just want to download it. And I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to press the button again. I think I've probably pressed it about 4 times now on accident. But go ahead and press download Reshade. And then you'll want to download the preset from here. Like I said, I'm recording this before I've set up the links properly, so the Patreon link is not there. But you can go to Sims FileShare or Google Drive and download this. And also, some people said that their computer was like flagging it as a virus. I think mine does as well. But rest assured, you will not get a virus if you download this. It's just one of those things. And once you have those two things downloaded... Oh, I should have started by saying this. Always, always, always back up your Reshade folder before you start playing around, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than putting all this stuff in your Reshade folder and installing a new version, and then you break everything and you're just sad for like a month. Okay, so this will be the download for Reshade version 4.9.1, and you'll just want to click on this and go ahead and run. Something that the later versions do is they try to automatically search for your game, but for some reason The Sims doesn't show up. So you're gonna have to browse to find it. And this is where things get a bit like, it really depends on your system. So I think for most people, what we're doing now is we're searching for the actual game application itself. Most people's will be in their C drive. Mine's in my D drive. I keep those two separate. program files, and then I think most people's, or people if you like downloaded The Sims after a certain date, you'll probably find the stuff you're looking for under Origin Games. I have nothing in here, so this does not apply to me, but if where I'm going you don't find the stuff that we're supposed to find, then check Origin Games. My Sims things are located in their own Sims 4 folder outside of Origin Games. And then you want to find the folder that says Game, Bin, and this is where you will find your Sims 4 application. Sims 4 uses Direct 9, I believe. It says it found the existing Reshade installation. I guess I didn't delete things out of my folder, so give me a second. Okay, so I really quickly went through and just uninstalled it again. And so when you select the Direct 9, you should be taken to this screen. And this screen is all the effect packages that you want to install. What's really cool about Reshade is that it has all these different kinds of shaders and effects that people have created that you can pick and choose from to create your own presets. For Dove, the only two that we really need are the Sweet Effects package and the Legacy Standard Effects package. But if this is your first time installing Reshade, or even if you're looking to download other presets that I've made, I would recommend getting the Quint shaders as well, just because a lot of Reshade presets that I know of and that I use the Quint shaders, and also they are really good shaders and I like them a lot. I would select Sweet Effects, Quint, and Legacy Standard Effects. Next, it'll take you to a screen where it tells you to select all of the effects that you actually want to install. So within each effects package, there's lots of different effects that you can choose to keep or toggle off. For our purposes, I think I'm just gonna leave everything checked. If you watched my last video, then I went through and pretty much told you all the ones that I'd never end up using and the ones that I'd like to keep on. But if that is too much to worry about right now, or you don't know what any of this is, then I would just leave everything checked. And as you play around with presets, you'll find which ones you actually need and which ones you don't need. So I'm just going to go through and select OK for all of them. Also, something that the later versions do that the earlier versions didn't do, as far as I know, is when you're loading presets, the Reshade does not load all of the effects at once. The older versions would try and load like all 100 different effects as soon as you got into the game, and it would take you 5 minutes and your game would stop working. It would maybe crash sometimes. What this version does differently is it only loads the effects that apply to the preset that you're currently trying to load. So these are the Legacy Standard effects, and again, I'm just going to check all of them off. Okay, so at this point, Reshade has been successfully installed, and you can click here to edit your Reshade settings. Now, because I uninstalled Reshade earlier, it reset all of my settings, and I didn't think that one through. I guess it kind of works out in our favor, because now I can show you what all this stuff is. So first things first, this file path is not correct. And preset, so if you have a particular preset that you want to load in on every time, I believe you can set that in this field. As of right now, I don't have a preset inside of the folder, so it probably won't default to anything. And then you have your screenshot path, which is where you want all of your Reshade screenshots to go. So you can find your file path and just copy and paste that in there wherever you want your screenshots to go. I normally don't tick any of these except for skip tutorial, just because I'm a pro. I know what I'm doing. I don't need the tutorial. But if you want to go through the tutorial or see the clock that I've never seen, or see your FPS while you're playing, or go into performance mode, you can do that. Okay, so at this point, Reshade is all installed. Everything's good, and we can close out. Now we have the Reshade preset itself and where we want to put that. If you remember earlier, we were searching for the Sims 4 application to run the installation of Reshade. And so your Reshade presets will go in the same spot where this is located. So again, you're going to want to go and find your Sims 4 game folder. Again, mine is located on my D drive under program files. Most people's will probably be located under C, program files origin games, but mine is just straight in the Sims 4 folder. Game, bin, there you go. And then you just want to copy and paste that just directly in this folder here. And I just thought about something that really I should have thought about earlier, but this is only my second time trying to install this version. Earlier when I said that file path looked wrong, I was incorrect. It was actually doing the right thing. It was searching for two separate folders because the Quinch shaders have their own folder, which is annoying, but hey. So what we'll want to do here is add the other file path so that way the Quinch shaders will show up. Okay, so all I did was put a comma and add this file path to the effects search paths line. And now we're good. So we have installed Reshade 4.9.1 as well as the preset. And now we're going to go in game, see what it looks like, and hopefully everything works. Okay, so we're back, we're in game, except we have Reshade installed now. First thing we're probably going to want to do is open up the Reshade menu, that way we can select our presets. When you first install Reshade, the later versions, their hotkey to open up the menu by default is the home key. So when you press the home key, this big menu should pop up on the side. Let's look under settings first, actually. Me personally, to toggle the overlay, I like to use the Shift F2 key. And effect toggle key, that'll be the key which will turn your effect on and off. So for instance, a lot of my Reshade use is solely for taking screenshots and pretty pictures. So a lot of the presets that I use are not gameplay friendly in the slightest. So much so that like tilting the camera a little bit will be like a painstaking process that takes 3 minutes because the game is so laggy. So if you have a quick key to just turn off the preset really quickly and move to where you need to be and then turn it back on, that's really helpful. So I like for that key to be Shift F3. I normally don't have a reload key. I don't reload the presets a lot, but I guess if like the preset is getting janky or like you made a change but it didn't show up right or something, you can set a key to reload. And like I said, you can change all of the effect paths in here. The little line that we added in that text document, if we hadn't added that, it wouldn't recognize the Quinch shaders. But yeah, and so from here you can add more. So if you had other shader folders that you wanted to add, then you could click on them and put them in here. You can remove them, and you can play around with the settings and set everything the way that you want it to be. Probably the most important thing is that this overlay key will open up the menu, so whatever you do, you always want to remember what that is. So on the home screen is where you'll find all of the steak and potatoes of Reshade. Don't know what all this stuff is? That's fine. You don't really need to know what all this stuff is. So up here in this blue box is where you'll be able to select the presets that you want to use. So we want to use Dove, so we're going to select this one. And again, like I said earlier, something that this version does that's really, really nice is it will only load the effects that are pertinent for that preset. So we've loaded in and we have this, which you'll notice probably does not look like how it looks in the previews. Don't fret, we can fix this. The number one thing that a lot of people have errors with is this really dark image that is just not It's not good. And it is all because of this MXAO shader. This shader is what gives the shadows. So a lot of people will be like, well, your game looks so nice and shadowed and it looks nice and I don't know what's wrong with mine. It's MXAO. MXAO breaks on a regular basis and we just have to live with it. But it's a really simple, really easy fix. So down here, this blue box that says Edit Global Preprocessor Definitions, we want to click into this and see where it says Reshade Depth Input is reversed. Where there's a 1 value, we want to input a 0. And voila, just like that, it's fixed. In the blink of an eye, this problem that was making you tear your hair out is now fixed. And that should be really the only big error that people have with this preset is the MXAO. Okay, so now I kind of want to talk about something else that could be called. I can't really show it to you. I'd have to restart the game, and I don't really feel like doing that. But I believe if you go into your game settings and now's a good time to show you that toggle the effect key off, the one that I set to Shift F3. If your menus are super bright or transparent and you can't really see anything, you can just turn off the effect really quickly to look at your game options. For reshade presets, I forget what shaders exactly cause this issue. I think it's probably MXAO and depth of field, but if you have edge smoothing on, it messes them up and they won't show up at all. So just make sure that you have that turned off. There are shaders in the reshade preset itself that will give you edge smoothing, at least where Dove is concerned, so you don't have to worry about having funky jagged edges while you're using the reshade preset. But you do want to make sure that you have edge smoothing off, otherwise it will mess up things with your preset. And that's pretty much it. As you can see, everything is installed and it looks the way it's supposed to, and it looks nice, and everything is hunky-dory. But there are a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about. So back on the subject of MXAO, I feel that it is important to let you guys in on a little MXAO secret, and that is that it is very much dependent on camera placement. So the further you zoom out, the more intense and harsh the shadows will be. And the further you zoom in, the less intense the shadows will be. So I don't know if you could kind of see, like, these plants, the shadows are getting darker as I zoom out and lighter as I zoom in. That is totally normal, and that is how it's supposed to function. And if when you zoom in it's not as shadowed as you'd like it to be, you can always open the menu. And what I like to do is I quickly untick and retick the MXAO, and down here is where you will find all of the settings that you can use to change. So if you wanted to increase the amount of shadow, all you have to do is drag this bar up, and you can see that the shadows are getting darker. Also, I just realized that there are specific settings that I use for my MXAO that, so maybe yours does not look quite like mine. Okay, so, on the download file itself, there is an additional, under the additional things section, there are specific preprocessor definitions for MXAO, so we edited the global ones to get it to look right, and now there's extra ones under MXAO. So by default, let me show you these by default. MXAO enable IL equals 0. Oh, well, that's not good. Okay, so I'm not really sure what just happened. Leave it to Reshade to decide to break on me after I actually tested to make sure that everything would work out the right way. It happens. Well, long story short, MXAO decided to completely break on me, and I'm not sure what happened. So rather than try to spend another 2 hours troubleshooting, I thought it would probably just be a good idea to use Quint MXAO instead. Okay, so Quint MXAO does the exact same thing as the regular MXAO, except this time it's actually going to work for us. And so what I was trying to say before I was rudely interrupted by MXAO breaking, like it so often does, is that MXAO has its own preprocessor definitions as well. So in the global preprocessor definitions, we made sure that the reshade depth input was reversed and that it equaled 0. Now we want to scroll to the bottom of the Quint MXAO, click on preprocessor definitions, and the way that I have my settings set are so that MXAO 2-layer, smooth normals, and enable IL all equal 1. Although by default, I'm pretty sure that they all equal 0. So really quickly, I'm going to show you what that will look like. And it's not really a question of which one's right so much as which one do you prefer. But I do believe that by default, MXAO looks like this. And I think it's a more accurate depiction of what happens when, like, you zoom out. You can see that the shadows are really dark. Then you zoom in and they're lighter. And it's also really apparent on your Sims faces. So I get a lot of the times, like, when you're zooming in, you get, like, these big blocky chunk thingies. And you can cut out a lot of the blockiness by entering the ones in those places where I told you to. But also, it's important to note that for taking screenshots, you should always be trying to use tab camera. So if you don't know what that is, if you press tab, you go into like this super professional camera mode, and you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and zoom out, and you can see that that blockiness that we were seeing before is gone off of her face. But as soon as we exit tab camera and zoom in, it's back. So if you like the way that the shadows look without inputting all of that other mumbo jumbo, then great. Just make sure that you use tab camera. So I think probably to get rid of the blockiness, smooth normals is probably all that you need. And then if you wanted to, you could leave the other two the same way. Oh, well, it does get a little bit weird, but overall it looks better, right? These other two kind of make the shadows, especially the IL, it makes them less pronounced. So again, it's more of a flavor thing. Whatever you prefer, you can use. As a matter of fact, I think I might disable the IL. And that's a brief history on MXAO, and it breaks everybody's game and usually is the source of any errors or weird, wonky, what have you, as far as presets are concerned. Anyway, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about as far as the Dove preset is concerned, and that is the depth of field. So if you don't know what depth of field is, it's when you take those pictures and you have the really pretty blurry background and it looks super nice and cool. I have two that are activated at any given point in time, and they're controlled by the mouse. So you can see as I highlight over Amelia, the background becomes blurred, and if I move my mouse back here, it doesn't. And then the closer I get to focusing on an image, the more blurred the background will become. So by default, when you first install, the depth of field is not activated just because for Dove, it was causing a large headache because if you logged in and suddenly everything was super blurry, it was kind of weird. So I made sure to turn that off. But there are hotkeys, so if you don't want to have to open up the menu and tick these boxes every time, then you can just do Shift 2, and that will turn on the depth of field. Now, there are two that I have activated just because I like the way that they look together. The ring depth of field adds this kind of chromatic aberration, so you'll notice a little bit of that going on in the background that I think looks kind of cool. And then the big long one that I just call GP, it makes brighter objects brighter. So you can see the sky is kind of this, not dark blue, but it's not very bright, and then when I mouse over Amelia and the depth of field is activated, it kind of brightens up a little bit, and I like that effect. By default, they're both toggled at the same time, so if you press Shift F2, both of them will come off or come on, but you can use one at a time if you prefer. So I just turned off GP. You'll notice that the sky is not getting brighter. Or you can turn off the ring depth of field and only have GP. Or you can have them both. Okay, so next I want to talk about some of the options that you can toggle on and off with this preset. Oh, by the way, you can move this thing if you don't like it over here. You can move it over here. But something that is new to the re-release, for the most part, the re-release or the 2.0 version is very, very similar to the original. In fact, I didn't touch the main portions, the main effects of the preset itself. I made little tiny changes here and there, but nothing really too drastic. The only things I added were the ability to use new shaders with new hotkeys that I found myself using a lot. So one of those things is the Ambient Light, and so that has a new hotkey, and it's Alt L. This is Ambient Light on, off, on, off. It's a really pretty effect, and it adds a very nice softness to the image, but it has a tendency to kind of wash things out. It's really noticeable if your sim is in a very bright environment or like they're against the sky. A colorfulness shader. So I said that I got a new monitor, and I think also my taste may have changed a little bit, and I kept looking at Dove and I was just like, this is not colorful enough, what's going on? So I had to give it a bit of a saturation boost with colorfulness, but I understand that Dove was already too colorful for some people, and so this might be a bit overkill. But if you do want an extra boost of color, you can toggle on colorfulness with Alt-C. And then we have clarity, which I didn't use a lot just because the purpose of Dove was to be kind of like soft and pretty and colorful. And clarity, as you can see, kind of adds not a harshness, but it kind of just defines things a bit more. And so I don't use it all the time, but like for things like my lookbooks, I would use clarity a lot or boost the levels just to make it a bit sharper. And so you can turn clarity on and off with Shift C. And then last but not least is film grain. I've been adding that to all of my presets in some way or another. I don't use it all the time just because I feel like you don't need to use it all the time. Sometimes you just want a nice clean image, other times you kind of want like that vintage nostalgic feel for the image, and you can toggle that with Alt G. And those were all the new things that I added. By default, they're disabled, so when you load in, you'll have all the same things that the original Dove preset used, barring MXAO, because now I'm going to go through and change everything so that way it only uses Quint. So this won't be an issue for people. So that is pretty much it. Dove is installed, we're on the latest version. Everything should be working correctly now. Hopefully it doesn't break as soon as I log off. But yeah, so I hope that this was helpful, and I just want to thank you guys again for showing the Dove preset so much love. I made this thing like 2 years ago, and the fact that people are still raving about it and they're really into it and they really love it is pretty cool. I hope that this answered questions and was helpful for you guys. If you guys have any more questions or need any additional help after this, I hesitate to say the best place to reach me is Tumblr because I just came off of like a 3 or 4 month hiatus, but chances are I'll probably check there first before the YouTube comments, which I know is backwards. But yeah, I'll leave links to that in the description. There'll be links to everything, the preset, the Reshade website, any helpful things. I will put timestamps as well to help you guys navigate through the video. With that being said, I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Hopefully Dove is working for you and is installed and you're on the latest version and you're happy. Yeah, thank you guys for watching and supporting, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so funny story time. I was I was playing earlier. I wasn't actually playing. I was just taking pictures, previews for the Dove 2.0, and I recently installed Wonderful Whims, and I just thought it was really funny because Amelia was next to Vic, right? And she's got this uncomfortable moodlet, and I was like, "Oh, what's wrong with her? Is there like trash around or something?" And it said she was next to an unattractive sim and she like was feeling sick to her stomach. And I was like, "Wow, there has never been anything so perfectly unplanned and accurate that I have ever experienced in Sims history than Amelia being completely and totally grossed out just standing next to Vic."